Hello, everyone, and welcome to your weekly astrology forecast for the week February 3rd to February 9th. And I just wanted to announce a couple of things just as reminders. If you are interested in monthly horoscopes, my monthly horoscopes with Stephanie Campos is up. If you are interested in the monthly horoscopes kind of zoomed out, and it's always good to listen to other astrologers' perspectives on the transits, which is why I like to have other astrologers on my podcast. And I'm currently open for personal readings. I offer two types of readings. One is called the soul print, which is basically a read of your natal chart, the blueprint of your soul. That's why I call it a soul print. And the transits and cycles, which is basically where you are currently right now in relation to the transits of the celestial bodies. So you can find all of that information on my website. And the best way to support me and my work, because I do this free 99, for free 99, is to subscribe, to comment, to share. You can subscribe to the Spotify, the Apple podcast that I have called Awaken and Align, or here on YouTube. And I've been contemplating whether or not to reactivate my Patreon. I used to have a Patreon back in 2020 where I would hold private circles that were related to the astrological transits. And we would meet every new and full moon, and we would do spells and rituals and magic. Because not only am I an astrologer in reading the charts, but I also use it for planetary magic as well. And I've just kind of been contemplating where I want to take this practice in the next couple months. You know, Mercury and Venus are going to be retrograde next month. So I'm kind of in the ideation phase. So if you have any requests, please let me know. I know a lot of you really loved the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni synastry reading I did with Tasha Begg. So we are going to meet for part 2. And so look out for that episode at the end of February. And I was surprised at how much people like that. And honestly, it came from a place of me just needing levity in the news. And it's just so interesting looking at people's natal charts and where they are in their lives and how they interact with other people. But also my interest came from the public's interest in this specific case. So to be continued. Excuse me. And oh my God, I'm just getting so excited here. It is the year of the snake, and I'm going to be interviewing Forrest, who is a Chinese Batsa astrologer. So look out for that episode to go live as well. I also have a lot of projects coming up that I'm working on now, and the interview style podcasts are coming back. Thank you so much for being patient. As some of you might have known, I was completely burnt out by 2023, 2024. I was working on other projects, other collaborations, and I just needed to get back to a place where I had enough energy to do the research and to, record these and edit them. I do most of this myself. So thank you for being patient. I also finished recording the astrology forecasts for each sign, and I'm in the process of editing all of that now. And part of my recap actually is that I've been having so many health issues. Like Uranus, the planet of awakening, has been transiting my 6th house of health. The 6th house in Hellenistic astrology is the house of bad fortune, because if you ignore your health, that is bad fortune. And as somebody who's never really had health issues, I've always been healthy. Man, when you ignore that and you just keep going, which is what I do, I burn myself out to the point where I can't function and I get really sick. But in the past month alone, in January, I was going through a lot of things. So I just wanted to share one transit that is why I say astrology is not like negative or positive, especially when we're talking about planets and aspects. So this occurred on January 23rd. I spoke about this. Mars retrograde in Cancer, sextile Uranus and Taurus at 23 degrees. And Mars and Uranus were retrograde. Mercury in Capricorn was opposite Mars retrograde in Cancer, also at 23 degrees. And Mercury in Capricorn was trine to Uranus retrograde in Taurus at 23 degrees. Now, when I first shared this aspect, I said, this could be surprising news. This could be something that you weren't expecting, something that also brought back the past. And lo and behold, on that day, well, first of all, the beginning of January, I had COVID, which I don't know if, I think I mentioned this in one of the weekly recaps. And it was weird because I hadn't left my house in 2 weeks. And so I actually caught COVID from my dad, who didn't know he had COVID. So it was like, Saturn transiting my fourth house. Saturn is the planet of like suppression and coldness, right? And Saturn, my dad gave me COVID. And so after I recovered from COVID, which again, I was so lethargic, I lost my voice, but I was still, trying to get through. I was still doing my work and I was still creating content. I discovered that there was like an infection in my gums on that day, January 23rd. So when I say like trines and these like harmonious aspects, they don't necessarily mean you're going to get the best news. It just means that the energy is flowing easily. So I went to the dentist, and this is an issue I've had like last year in 2024, exactly a year ago. And my teeth, so teeth are like very Saturnian, right? Because Saturn rules our bones and the most dense parts of our skeletal structure. And that's where I have trauma. And my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, all of her teeth fell out in her like early 40s because that's how she processed her trauma. She like literally grinded her teeth down so much to the point where she didn't have any teeth left. And I asked my cousin, and my sister, my mom have the same thing. And she said she also has teeth trauma. So this is clearly like maternal line of how we deal with our stress. We just like fracture our teeth. And so when I went to the dentist, again, teeth are very Saturnian and Capricornian. My dentist said, like, are you okay? Because you are literally fracturing all of your teeth, essentially. And I thought that I was okay. Like, I just think I have a large capacity to hold things. But clearly I was not okay because my teeth are all messed up. And so she was saying, you might need a root canal, and I don't have dental insurance, so I've been paying my dental work out of pocket. So again, the same thing happened last January. And so I was like, oh God, like I've been trying to save up for a new laptop, well, a new to me laptop, and now I'm going to have to spend thousands of dollars again on my teeth. So it was like Uranus was like, surprise. And Mercury and Mars are in my financial houses, my second and eighth houses in Capricorn and Cancer. So I was like, of course, like, duh. These things are stuff that like you can't really predict, but they reveal an underlying issue, especially when planets are retrograde. It's like, oh, these are things that you might have ignored. And for me, I was ignoring my health, and I was ignoring the fact that I just needed to rest and recover from, like, I had already been so burnt out, and then I had COVID, and then right away I was just trying to like, go. And so when Uranus went direct, so basically I had to take antibiotics to for my infection. And I finished my antibiotics, and the day Uranus stationed direct on January 30th, I had I had an allergic reaction to amoxicillin, which is penicillin, and I broke out in hives. So I was just like one thing after another. My body is just like rejecting my my capitalism, my go attitude. And tomorrow I'm going to get a 3D scan of my teeth to make sure that I actually need a root canal. So it's like an ongoing story of this like ongoing story of my health. Uranus in Taurus in my sixth house, Mars retrograde in Cancer in my eighth. And it's just like, at the end of the day, it could have been so much worse, but it just reminded me again, like when you get a surprise, sometimes it's revealing to you, like, actually, like you have to take care of yourself because health is really wealth. I know that sounds so cheesy, but it's like if you don't take care of yourself, it's going to manifest in other ways. So I just wanted to share that personally. And it's something that I'm continually working through because, again, I can hold a lot. Like I've worked in private equity for many years. I worked in corporate America for many years. And so my capacity to just keep working and ignoring my physical health and my emotional health and my mental health, I forget that I can do that, but I don't need to do that. And so I'm really trying to exercise and eat healthy and but most importantly, like take these mental breaks off of just like everything so that I can like repair my brain. And Jupiter in the sign of Gemini is overloading your nervous system with information. And so anyway, I wanted to share that and have full transparency that I am still working through these transits just as much as you are. So just to recap, we are still in Mars retrograde in Cancer. Jesus, Allah, everybody, calling upon everybody to help us here. But Mars in Cancer, now this is what Stephanie and I mentioned in the February forecast, is there's like an ongoing theme about home and displacement. If you look in the USA Sibley chart, which is essentially the USA's birth chart, it has a stellium of planets in the sign of Cancer. And so Cancer is a sign of the home, but in its shadow aspects, Cancer can also express itself as nationalism, as make America great again. So during last week, we saw ICE deportations, rolling back on DEI initiatives, and just like this overall, again, like this ongoing thing about deporting immigrants, and which is so ironic to me because the United States is like, this was built on stolen land from the indigenous people, and Mexicans are indigenous to the Americas. I don't know if you knew that, but I just did some research and I found it interesting that the two eclipses that happened in the US from 2017 to 2024 made an X of the United States. And I've shown this photo on my Instagram and my TikTok if you want to go back. The one in 2017 was an eclipse, a solar eclipse in the sign of Leo, and the 2024 was a solar eclipse in the sign of Aries, and it made an X across the US. And it intersects at Texas. And I think Texas is so interesting. And so I looked up when it was annexed by the US. And by annexed, it really means stolen. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm laughing. The US annexed Texas December 29th in 1848. Okay. Which I found this date to be interesting because that is a Saturn and Aries time. That's a Saturn and Aries conjunction time. So in 1846, Saturn and Neptune were conjunct in the sign of Aquarius. This was the US-Mexican War, the redefinition of borders. And in our 2025 forecast, if you watch that, I mentioned, which I'm going to still continue to talk about because it hasn't happened yet this year. But basically, Saturn and Neptune conjunctions talk about the forming and reforming of boundaries. And so I'm not surprised that when the US annexed Texas, that was near a Saturn and Neptune conjunction, because essentially after the US did that, the US expanded like a lot. Then in 1848, the Mexican secession consisted of the present day United States of California, Nevada, Utah, most of Arizona, the western half of New Mexico, the western quarter of Colorado, and the southwest corner of Wyoming. So if you actually do like historical research on how the US literally stole these states from Mexico, like that was part of Mexico. It doubled after the Louisiana Purchase. The United States like tripled in size. And during this time, this was before the Civil War, before Neptune in the sign of Aries. This was during Neptune in Pisces. And during this time was like manifest destiny and the Western expansion of the United States, and the settlers' belief that they were God, like they had the God-given right to take away the land from the quote unquote savages. And Neptune is all about myths and belief systems. So I just thought that was so interesting. So like when there's that Saturn and Neptune conjunction in Aries this year, I don't know, something could be going on with these states or Texas. Something about that feels like it's coming back up to the surface. But again, I just wanted to point this out because essentially deporting Mexicans is like so diabolical to me when this land was part of their country in the first place. So on January 27th, Gazans returned back to the north of Gaza, and the 1988 chart of Palestine with Yasser Arafat as a leader of the PLO, that is a Virgo rising chart. And the South Node in Virgo, the seventh house of one-on-one partnerships is Pisces, and the North Node in that seventh house. So essentially, the Palestine chart, at least this independence chart, is going through its nodal return. And also in that chart, there is a Saturn Neptune conjunction in Capricorn and Uranus, except Uranus is in a different sign. I believe it's still in the sign of Sagittarius, but there is a conjunction there. And so watch out for what happens this summer and then next year in 2026, when basically those planets in Aries, the Saturn and Neptune conjunction in the sign of Aries, will start to square Palestine's Saturn and Neptune conjunction in the sign of Capricorn. Again, Saturn and Neptune talk about the dissolution of boundaries and the reforming of new boundaries. And also Mars in Cancer representing home, the displacement of people from their homes. And now that ceasefire happened around the full moon in Cancer and the sun opposite Mars. And that is the midpoint of the Mars retrograde. So the fact that now, as Mars is stationing to go direct on February 23rd, we're starting to see some of the return of people back to their homes. Inshallah, this ceasefire sticks. We shall see. On January 28th, the Venus pre-shadow began at 24 degrees of Pisces. So you want to journal what started happening in your Pisces house or the Venus ruled houses of yours starting on January 28th, because Venus will retrograde in the sign of Pisces and Aries, but Venus also rules two houses of your natal chart. So for example, my Pisces house is my fourth house of home, family, ancestors, and foundation. My Aries house is the fifth house of pleasure, joy, romance. But Venus rules my 11th house of community friendships and my 6th house of health. So as Venus was going in its shadow, that is when my body broke out in hives. And again, health is my 6th house of Taurus. So we shall see what this actual retrograde will be about. It might have to do with me just really like going back to health routines. And yeah, those are just some themes. So I suggest journaling as a way to keep track. On January 29th, there was the new year, the year of the snake. The snake is an animal about shedding its skin because we are shifting into a new paradigm. The snake is also a creative, sexual, transformative animal. And like I mentioned, I'm going to be speaking to Forrest about the year of the snake. So make sure to look out for that at the end of the month. So I talked about January 30th, Uranus station direct, and February is Black History Month. Okay. So I think that is all that I wanted to say about the recap. So let's start with February 3rd. And this will be coming out February 3rd. So today, Mercury in Aquarius will trine Jupiter retrograde in Gemini at 11 degrees. So trines, again, are harmonious aspects. They are a flowing aspect. This is a great day to communicate, to send emails. It's a great day to commiserate with your comrades, organize. It's a great day to get a message across, essentially. Now, Jupiter is literally like still in the sky, getting ready to station direct the next day on February 4th. But this is lovely. And actually, I'm recording this on February 3rd for this reason, because I thought, what a great day to do the weekly astrology. And the moon will be in Aries, and we are in the waxing phase towards the full moon in Leo on February 12th. On February 4th, Jupiter stations direct at 11 degrees. So reflect back since October 19th-ish, when Jupiter stationed retrograde. Now, the Jupiter ruled areas of your house, so you want to look at the Sagittarius area of your life and the Pisces area of your life, might have felt like they were standing still. And Jupiter is a planet of opportunity, expansion, and optimism and freedom. So you might have felt stuck for the last like 4 months-ish. I know a lot of people have felt stuck. A lot of people have also experienced some financial insecurity and scarcity, because Jupiter, again, is the planet of abundance and expansion and growth, right? Not only that, but Jupiter is not in it's not in its favorite sign of Gemini. When Jupiter is in the sign of Gemini, Jupiter needs to pay attention to the detail, gather data, do some research. When Jupiter is at home in the signs of Sagittarius and Pisces, Jupiter just wants to believe. It doesn't matter really what kind of evidence it gathers. It's just like, I am Delulu. Like, I just want to believe. I see the big picture of how everything is, the good, the bad, the ugly, like it's all part of this sacred experience. So now that Jupiter is going to go direct, this is why I was like, to all my clients, I was like, just hold on a little longer, because you're going to start to see things moving forward. On the same day, Venus will ingress into Aries. Now, this retrograde is so interesting because when Venus is in the sign of Aries, it's in its opposite signs planet, essentially. Well, the planet Venus is in opposite planet signs. Oh my God, getting tongue-tied. So Venus is at home or in its domicile in the signs of Libra and Taurus. So when Venus is in a Mars-ruled sign like Aries, Venus is the planet of harmony, forming bonds, but Mars is the planet of separation. And so Venus in Aries is like, I want to do my own thing. Like, I want to get shit done. I want to be independent. I want to like get after it. Right. And it's interesting because when Venus is retrograde back into Pisces, Venus is exalted in Pisces because Venus is in the realm of dreams and music and art and harmony and consciousness. So there is this interesting duality of Pisces and Aries in your chart. And remember, Venus and Mercury will go retrograde at the same time. So Aries and Pisces houses are going through some kind of reflection and review. Early on February 4th, the moon will enter Taurus and square Pluto. So there's some kind of like activation on this day. February 4th is it's like an energetic day, right? So I can see this as like people having some kind of news, I think collectively, because when a planet ingresses into a cardinal sign at 0 degrees, that is a world point. So I don't know, February 4th is giving like big world news. It could have something to do with like women's rights, for example, because the last Venus retrograde was during 2017. Venus retrograde in the sign of Aries was 2017. And that was like the Me Too movement. That was when women and everybody marched in DC for the Women's March. And that's when women wore the pussy hats. I remember because I was there. And that was also when Trump's inauguration happened that year as well. So just think back to that time and like what you were going through, because similar themes might come back. But yeah, some kind of women's issues, feminist issues can arise during this day. And like I said, because Venus is in its detriment in the sign of Aries, this could be like retaliation or some kind of oppression on women's rights issues. And like I mentioned, the moon represents the body. The moon in a nation's chart represents the people, is in its exaltation in Taurus, but it's squaring Pluto. So that's a difficult aspect. It's a 90-degree angle. The moon will also then square Mercury and then the sun and will connect with Uranus. So the moon is making some interesting aspects this day. It's gonna, again, square Pluto. It's gonna square Mercury. So some kind of like news. It's going to square the sun. Something's going to be illuminated. And then it's going to connect with Uranus, this like revolutionary awakening moment. And Uranus is now direct, so something's moving forward. Again, this day, watch out for the news, watch out for what's happening in your life, because February 4th is lit. February 5th, this is the first quarter moon in Taurus. And remember that Mars is answering to the moon. So first quarter is the part where it's in between the new moon and the full moon. And this is, again, a 90-degree angle between the sun and the moon. And something is at a crisis point here. So we had the new moon in Aquarius around January 29th, and the full moon is in the sign of Leo on February 12th. So whatever intentions you set on that day, you're starting to see like a little bit of light. You're starting to see a little bit of what you started to set intentions around. Or it's at a crisis point where you need to pivot or you need to make a different decision. And yeah, we are at a crisis point here. February 7th, the North Node in Pisces will conjunct Neptune in Pisces at 28 degrees. Now, the North Node it's a point of hunger. It's characterized in Vedic astrology as the head of the dragon. This is where our collective souls are trying to move towards. So Pisces is the sign of unity consciousness, of healing, of spirituality, of art, of music, remembering that we are all drops in the ocean, right? But this is not like easy. It's a part of us that we have to remember, and that our souls are trying to get us towards to like remembering, essentially reckoning with. Um, and Neptune, again, is the planet of our ideals and our beliefs and our myths and omens and our delusions as well. And so there's something about the North Node conjunct Neptune. It's like we're all reckoning with the myths that we were told. Now, the USA Sibley chart has Neptune in Virgo, which is opposite right now the Neptune in Pisces. So we were all taught the American dream. I mean, I am a daughter of immigrant parents. That's why they came to this country, because there was no opportunity in their home country of South Korea, because this was post-Korean War. It was just, there was no opportunity. So they came to the United States, and they literally believed in the American dream so much that they gave up everything. They left their homes, they left their language, they left their parents, their siblings, and came to a country that they did not know like anything about. But now, collectively, I believe that a lot of people are starting to see the illusion of the American dream, and how the American dream really is just this like marketing tool to get people to work hard and to be of servitude to a system that is only beneficial to like the 1% of the oligarchy that is in charge. So I do think it's interesting that I think that is the collective like unmasking of the United States. And I'm sure this is going on in every country around the world, right? Because we are all collectively going through this. And in the USH Sibley chart, the 10th house of the US Sibley chart is Virgo, and the fourth house of home is Pisces. So it's like you kind of have to understand the history and the foundations of how this country was founded in order for you to understand that we are breaking through that illusion. Remember that apocalypse just means lifting of the veil. So in your own personal life, you can be going through this as well. You could be realizing that a part of your understanding or the myths that you were told by your family of origin or your culture are just like not true. And I find that to be so interesting that, you know, this is all happening as Neptune will enter the sign of Aries, which is, you know, a cardinal fire sign. On the same day, Venus and Aries will sextile Pluto in Aquarius at 2 degrees. This is lovely. This is a great day to form deep bonds. Sextiles are 60-degree angles. They are harmonious. This is a great day to, yeah, it's very sexy. Venus and Pluto. It has a fatal attraction kind of energy. But yeah, it's a great day to form bonds, deep bonds. On February 9th, Mercury in Aquarius will conjunct Sun in Aquarius at 20 degrees. And on the same day, Mars retrograde will trine Saturn in Pisces at 18 degrees. This is a lovely day, honestly, because Mercury conjunct the Sun is like having an awareness, having it's a conjunction, so it's like a new moon. So Mercury is resetting itself with the Sun. This is a great day to create a newsletter, a Patreon, a Substack, share your information, share resources, connect with people, connect with community, start a community group, join a mutual aid group, join the General Strike US strike card. It's such a good day for organizing. I cannot tell you. And because Mars in Cancer will trine to Saturn in Pisces, like this is such a great day to take action on these things with shared beliefs and shared like values, essentially, because Saturn is also the planet of maturation, of discipline, of responsibility. Mars is the planet of action, right? Such a good day to do this kind of stuff. So that is the vibe of this coming week. I think it's really positive. I think that, you know, we're in the waxing phase of the moon, so we're growing something. planets are going direct now, especially with Jupiter, and later on in the month, Mars will go direct. And there's just this like optimism that's coming back. I hope that you feel that as well. And yeah, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next week.